Going into this video, I'd like to say that a lot of the footage I edit in might be photos taken on my own TV screen. Not the highest quality, I know, but if there's stuff I'm trying to show that I can't find other examples of online, then I will just do that. So yeah, figured I'd clarify that. Enjoy the video. I don't actually know how much of that I'll be using, actually, because I get it as I go along. So yeah, enjoy. There's a lot of SmackDown vs. Raw games, and my favourite is SvR 2008, which is quite an unpopular take. I'd like to preface this video by saying this is just my opinion, whilst I will be looking into fundamental features and mechanics of these games, more specifically SvR 2008, of course, and 2007. I'll get into why I'm carrying those two in particular for this video. But anyway, my overall conclusion is entirely subjective, despite some core mechanics that are objectively, good or whatever, But it's still subjective because the SvR series is incredible, and each individual entry stands out in its own way. And as you can see, there's quite a few. So yeah, they all offer a lot of fun and unique content. So yeah, let's get into this. This video is not due to me having a nostalgia boner for SvR 2008. I actually played it for the first time in December 2021. And I did grow up with the SmackDown vs. Raw series. And review shows here. I have the Wii versions for SvR 2009 and 2011. These were the first two wrestling I had growing up. I started with SvR 2009 and then 2011. Don't ask why I didn't have 2010 on the Wii. I don't actually know the reason why my family skipped over that one. And I don't actually remember the time I specifically started playing them, because when I started playing them, I believe we had both 2009 and 2011. So it might have been 2010 I got into wrestling games. I don't know. I was a very young creature, so yeah, I don't remember. Regardless, I did get SvR 2010 years later in 2015, finding it for very cheap, I don't know, at GameStop or whatever. This marked the first SvR game I owned on Xbox 360. I'm growing up with just two of the games on the Wii, which I don't realize there were superior versions. And, when I think of it back in the day, I definitely struggled with 2009 the Wii, although I think it's the best experience for the Wii version because it uses the most motion control stuff. So if you're bothering to get specifically the Wii version, 2009 is the most standout. But as a kid, I think I definitely struggled with it. 2011 was much more in line with what the regular games were, and then I got WWE 12 and 13 on the Wii before getting Xbox 360. Again, 2K14, 2K15 on that. But yes, we go back to 2010. SvR 2010. And so this was really cool. And I didn't remember which games I owned. I thought this would have been one I already had for the Wii. But no, it was very interesting to play. And I do enjoy 2010. It's something I want to make another video of its own for, because I think its core gameplay is super underrated. Specifically the 16-point grapple system, which to my knowledge has only ever been in that WWE game where you have 4 different points and then 4 grapples for each point, core grapples. It's cool. I do enjoy that game. Unfortunately, it kind of lacks a lot of content because 2009 killed a lot of stuff, and 2009 murdering a bunch of features is going to be quite a prominent point in this video. So yeah, if you don't mind. So yeah, most recently, even though this is the oldest one, I got SvR 2008 had from my friend and insisted it was the best one as it felt the most complete. Being before 2009 just bulldozed everything and said, no, you can't have this feature. But yeah, to clarify, the SvR series has a major issue running through the entirety of its lifetime. It's not just 2009. This issue was the random disappearance of features and content for each game. Of course, the roster would change each year, but that was to be up to date of each year, alongside obviously contractual stuff and wrestlers leaving the company, etc. So most of that was out of THQ's hands, but other stuff was quite inexplicable. 2009 is, of course, infamous for killing GM mode and season mode. The latter at least had a logical replacement with Road to WrestleMania, which I consider to be a massive step up to season mode, personally. So that was cool, but there was no justification for GM mode being removed. There was no replacement for it. And it stayed gone until 2021, when 2K gave us my GM, which just isn't the same at all. There are other things like match type removals and really specific features that can pile up, even if they seem like minor removals initially. We'll touch upon some of them. There's so much that I can't cover it all in the entirety of the series, which is why I'm kind of narrowing down the games I discuss in particular. But 2009 is significant as to why 2008 stood out to me, because it was the latest entry before they took out so many really fan favorite stuff that the SvR series had beforehand. And I grew up with the ones that came after that, so having 2008 is really cool. And yes, the purpose of this game is to defend SvR 2008 and compare it more specifically to 2007. And I will, again, I will explain that. But I've got some more things to clarify. This clarification is that whilst I haven't properly owned any of the wrestling games predating 2008, I've emulated the first three that are missing from my collection, the SvR series, which SvR, then SvR 2006 has become like a yearly thing, so slapped a year onto that one. Then 2007, I've emulated them all. And I will probably inevitably get to SvR 2007 at some point, as it was the first game to be on Xbox 360, SvR 08 and 06 being PlayStation exclusives, which I'll never be able to play because I'm an Xbox and Nintendo geek. But 2007 I can definitely get, and you can get all the games for very cheap, so it's definitely worth going back and checking out the ones I never got to try. But obviously, emulation, not perfect circumstances, especially when I'm doing it on a phone. But, while it's not ideal, it helps me develop a better understanding of each game, on top of my countless hours of watching videos of the games and just general experience with the series as a whole. I can kind of tell what I like, what I don't like. It's pretty easy to gain an opinion on any entry in the series if you've just played a few. So yeah, and of course I've literally made SvR 2007 videos on this channel with a GM mode, which I never completed. Sorry about that. From my research, looking at various reviews and posts on Reddit and whatnot, I'm looking at what fans think of this. Of the two games, it's the SvR 2007 is the more popular one, and I still haven't come across many reasons why SvR 2007 is so beloved. Yet, in comparison, SvR 2008 is often heavily despised. It's mixed at best. And I don't really get it. There are some definite negatives to 08 compared to 07, but it's never felt significant to me. But I will cover what's there, unless I'm missing something. And it's somewhat revisionist history as SvR 2006, which is absolutely one of the most standout entries in the series. Was understandably considered to be the best, with SvR 2007 marking the beginning of a slowdown in terms of new changes to each game, and the current engine was beginning to seem outdated as the next console generation had begun. Now, I don't agree with this, as I see all SvR games as timeless, but this used to be the general consensus on a game. If you look at all the reviews and stuff, which obviously very subjective, but at the time, it was 06 that was the fan favorite one, but it's kind of shifted to 07. And whilst this is a fantastic game, I find it unfair seeing this game get its flowers when 08 is still critically mixed. Now I should explain why I'm primarily comparing 2007 and 2008 in the first place. And this is because I find it to be the most alike games in the series. They still stand out on their own, but I do think 08 for the most part just upgrades 07's already great gameplay. Between the two games, many features are shared that other games just do not have. For example, the crowd fighting area, the focus on ultimate control grapples and environmental interactions that debuted in 07 and continued to remain prominent in 08. With one removal, and that being like this one where you drag them to the announce table before you take the top off, and then you can like take out like a wire and just strangle your opponent. That was only in 2007. Besides that, everything from 07's ultimate control system is in 08, although the system did change. I will obviously get to change in a moment, but I figured I'd mention that now before I forget. So yeah, we'll get to all this. But we'll be comparing the differences and pros and cons of these two entries. And I think they're the best place to start. Now, visually, all of the menus are pretty good, except for SvR 2005, because it just has a woman dancing on your screen. Okay, cheers. With 07 to 09, I feel really nailing the aesthetics and the really cool UI. So visually, I'd say they're both as good. Personally, I prefer 08, but they both achieve the same great look. And also, they both have banger soundtracks. So yeah, they both nail the aesthetics. And the soundtrack, visually, is a great menu. And the first noticeable addition between the two is that SvR 2008 has a play now option. This is something that I believe has only ever appeared in SvR 2008. And it's quite simple. It just immediately takes you to the character select screen. You pick your characters and it immediately puts you into a regular match with a random arena. Which, cool, I guess. It's nothing groundbreaking and not something I use at all, besides when I first got the game and wanted to immediately jump into a match. But it's a little bit of added convenience for casual players if one to pick up and play. But overall, it's a completely unnecessary feature, but a harsh one nonetheless. I don't know many people who struggle with the menu system, albeit 2008 manages to make it a lot more convenient to navigate, and I will show you how. Like visually, these menus, I think they both nail aesthetics. However, I do think 08 is a massive improvement in terms of just the menu convenience for the exhibition, and how 2008 handles it is what becomes the norm for every game that follows it. So it's actually quite significant when you think of it like that. 2007 and years beforehand, they would separate the title matches and main events. Main events are like the list of all like special match types with like special stipulations like buried alive and all that stuff. And it's a good selection. It's just kind of annoying how it's a separate thing. There's no real point to it. And title matches, SvR 2008 makes you able to just select it when you select a champion in the roster. You can just toggle that on, which I prefer that system. And 2008 has something that's much more familiar to newer fans. This is just what every game does after this. They just list the number of people involved, and then they just show you the full list of what can be done in this match type. And this game also has a great selection of match types. But there are some removals, unfortunately, and some changes. There's actually a couple of match types that get removed. Two quite popular ones, admittedly. Firstly, there's the removal of the barroom brawl. And it's funny because 2006 actually had 3 backstage brawl areas. One was just like a generic backstage area. Then you also had the barroom parking lot. Then, 2007 decides, we're going to make it 2 match brawl areas now. And then SvR 2008 just has the parking lot one, which is the best one in my opinion, but it's still very unnecessary to remove this stuff. And it's not just 2008, it's not just 2009, it's just always been happening. 2007 is probably a bigger culprit of removing match types when you compare this main event selection to this one, which has Slabanaka, let's see, Free Cage of Hell, which I don't know why that's not in every game, because all you do is select 3 stipulations to happen in one match. 3 stipulations obviously already being in the game. So I think that's really cool. It's a shame that's been gone. And also there's Fulfill Your Fantasy, which probably best. This one's gone. And yeah, 07 added Money in the Bank. They were still adding match type each year. Money in the Bank carries over to 2008. Yeah, the parking lot brawl's just as fun as it was in the past 2 games. It's practically the same for the most part. But the Barroom Brawl, now gone. And I have no real justification for this one. And I guess it was removed because of the giant Hogan statue, and they couldn't be able to change it due to Hogan's fallout with WWE in 2007, which made him leave the company, which also means he's not in 2008's roster. So that's the whole thing. But also, that doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's just removed, I don't know, just for the sake of it, I guess, because they do just remove shit. And I have no justification for any of it, so I guess I can't just try and justify this one. But yeah, the second match type, removable in 2008, is also quite significant and quite a fan favourite. You might have noticed there is special referee in SvR 2007. But it's not around for 2008, which I didn't even realize until I started making the script for this video, and I was obviously making the comparisons. I completely forgot 07 has this match type, and 06. It was 08 that just like, let's get rid of it. Don't know why, again. And like Free Stage House, and the one that baffles me, that's just not a norm in the game, because all the animations are obviously available due to there obviously being an NPC referee in each game. SvR 2010 showed how easy it is to incorporate that little guest referee, because they used the gimmick twice in Road to WrestleMania, but still do not make it an actual match. You know, it had features like dragging your opponent when he's down onto the other superstar. Like they literally added to the mode and then just didn't make it playable in exhibition. It's so weird. It's so weird. I love these games, but they're very weird about how they do this. And there's also some minor changes to the Iron Man, Ultimate Submission, and Hell in a Cell match types. Ultimate Submission and Iron Man share the same change, and it's quite an unfortunate one. Where previously there were options for 30 and 60 minute Iron Man plus Ultimate Submission matches. Those were available in 2007, and now it just goes up to 20 in 2008, which is weird. You think it'd be at least half an hour. I don't know why they change it. It's just a time interval. I don't particularly like it. Even though I know obviously having shorter Iron Man matches for a game is just more appealing. It's just fun to do like crazy ass hour-long matches. You got the time for it. Like just make it an option, you know. Another thing that was rude was the timer entirely in match types that don't feature a time limit. So, of course, it's not in Iron Man or Submission. There is this beat the clock sprint thing, and I'll get to it because it's quite cool and it's only appeared in 2008. That features a timer, of course, but I'll cover that later. Besides that, the timer is not shown in match types normally anymore, which is a shame, but it's inconsequential at the end of the day, of course. So, you know, I personally don't hate it, as it gets rid of more clutter covering the screen. However, this clearly should have just been something you could toggle on and off at your choosing in the settings. You know, like make it just part of like the HUD you can change. although yeah, this is before you could actually toggle stuff on the hood on and off. You can change the reversal indication, take them out in '08. So that's something. And something super strange about the limiting the time limit to just 20 minutes for your match is there's a Hall of Fame mode, again, something we'll cover later. And one of the challenges is essentially recreating the Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart match, but it's only 20 minutes because they reduced the time that you can have. So that's weird. As for Hell in a Cell, there's now invisible barriers around the size of the top of the cell, which is just the norm now. Which makes it harder to throw your opponent off, but you can still achieve it with this brawl throwing animation alongside the ultimate control grapples, being able to dump people over the edge. So I don't think this actually takes away from any fun, even though it added chaoticness that you could just fall off casually. I think it's better this way, personally, but I know that's a hot take. And what's strange is that, and this applies to both 2007 and 2008, and it's that their version of Hell in a Cell is Falls Count Anywhere, and you have no ability to turn Falls Count Anywhere on and off in the settings. That's just something that you either have in a match type or you don't. Like Hardcore is a Falls Count Anywhere match, and also Hell in a Cell is Falls Count Anywhere. For some reason, I don't recall there being any Falls Count Anywhere Hell in a Cell matches. Not at this time. I think, what was it, Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens had one in like 2017 or whatever. So yeah, it's strange. I don't mind it, and I think it's because in these aspects, like being inside the cell itself, is not many players do it. They just want to break it out. Also, there's a crowd area to find, so it makes sense. It's just weird, and I think it should have been an option. Regardless, Hell in a Cell is fun in both games, and I think it's just slightly better in a way. Now on to something that's quite a big negative of SvR 2008, and that's the roster. The roster saw many removals, as mentioned before. Hulk Hogan was one of the legends taken off the roster. Many other legends in 2007 and in 2008 as well, including Bam Bam Bigelow, Dusty Rhodes, Jerry Lawler, Mr. Perfect, Taz, Eddie Guerrero, and Jim Neidhart. Which the latter two there, Eddie and Jim, they were in 2008 but exclusives to the PSP version. And any stats I say on the roster size will be excluding exclusive characters, which SvR 08 has 4, joining Eddie and Jim for the exclusives, but as an exclusive for the Nintendo DS version instead was none other than Hardcore fucking Holly. Yes, I'm not joking. I'm not fucking joking. They literally gave the DS version a single exclusive, and it was just Hardcore Holly, who was in SvR 2000 on the base roster anyway, and was just literally just a guy in the WWE ECW brand. He was not a top guy or anything like that. He was just not in 08 for some reason, but was in the DS version. Super fucking weird. You know, I don't like exclusives, but I get throwing in stuff like some special iconic legends as compensation for some shortcomings due to hardware limitations with these inferior versions of the game. But Hardcore Holly, he just should have been regular roster under the ECW brand. So yeah, it's weird. And lastly, for the Legends roster, you actually had all 3 faces of Mick Foley, all of his gimmicks. So you have Dude Love, you have Cactus Jack, and you have Mankind. And these were seemingly removed for no reason. Mick Foley still returns. He returns for SvR 2008. He was just part of the Raw brand in 07, whilst his 3 iconic gimmicks were listed as legends. So it's weird why they didn't just bring in the other faces. You know, well, I don't think it's necessary to have all 4 versions of Foley. 2007 already provided them, so I see no reason why 08 wouldn't, you know, essentially just do the same thing, because they could just reuse the models, right? And And I know 08 is quite a step up in graphics, and some models did get updated. I don't know if Mix was updated, but even if it was, you can just use the same face model that they did for regular Foley and then do it for the others. It's weird, It doesn't matter as long as you're Mick Foley, it's Mick Foley. I don't need the gimmicks with him. But you had it in 07. I'd expect it in 08. And what's especially weird is that you can't have Taz, because the removal of Taz, Jerry Lawler, is a baffling one. Is they're both still commentators for WWE at this time, and especially on to now Taz in particular, because the marketing of this game is the debut of ECW. So you'd think you'd have Taz as playable. So SvR 2007 has a total of 16 wrestlers listed as legends, whilst 2008 only has 9, 12 for the PSP version, which also chucks in Sergeant Slaughter, who wasn't in 07, but does debut here, but as a PSP exclusive. But do keep in mind, though, the SvR 2007-16 includes 3 versions of Mick Foley, as well as Shane McMahon as a legend. Now, Shane is in SvR 2008, but is merely listed under the Raw brand instead. So what is objectively a decrease in legends, at least for the non-PSP version of 08. The legend roster remains quite strong for the standards of the SvR series, because this is still before 2009, which essentially removed all legends. Yes, they realised there's no reason why Taz shouldn't be playable, and they brought him back for 2009 for the BCW Road to WrestleMania storyline where he played CM Punk. Well, it's unfortunate that 2008 excluded him. At least they'd learned a lesson, and I'm sure he'll stick around for every game that he's a commentator in. No, SvR 2010, you had one fucking job. Yes, Ben is removed again for 2010, which is the last game where Taz is on commentary. I don't understand it either. I don't. And the funniest shit is this. You can make the FTW championship in this game, and he's still not playable. Quite annoying. And for the record, the Creator Championship in this game is identical to 2007's. It's solid. You can recreate a lot of belts. You have up to 10 slots. I like it. I like it. And 2009 also removed this. God damn it. But hey, let's go back to the roster as a whole. And as a whole, SvR 2007 has 67 wrestlers, whilst 2008 has 53. 14 characters smaller, with the roster excluding exclusives. And this is certainly a significant decrease. And again, a lot of it was out of the hands at the time. Many wrestlers were leaving the company, like RVD and Big Show. And of course, there's the Benoit tragedy that got him out of the game. But a lot of stuff just made no sense. Now, I go through the NBC list here. You see Maria. She's a mode equivalent of this game, and she's a backstage interviewer. But the thing is, at times she was also wrestling, so it made no sense to exclude from roster. And they knew she was wrestling. In one of the storylines, you literally team up with her, and she has a complete moveset and everything. They just forgot to put her on the roster. I shit you not. Which, yeah, that is disastrous. That's really bad. And, speaking of the women's roster, I guess I'm calling them women, not divas. Fuck off. There's only 7 in 2008, which is certainly quite small and wasn't aided by Trish and Lita retiring the year prior, within like a similar time frame, which led to their removal from the SvR roster too. So overall, SvR 2008 lost the following wrestlers: Bam Bam Bigelow, Big Show, Cactus Jack, Chris Benoit, Davari, Dude Love, Dusty Rhodes, Eddie Guerrero, Hardcore Holly, Hulk Hogan, Jerry Lawler, Jillian Hall, Jim Neidhart, Joey Mercury, Kid Cash, Lance Cade, Lita, Mankind, Mr. Perfect, Paul Burchill, Psychosis, Rob Van Dam, Sean Benjamin, Super Crazy, The Boogeyman, Trevor Murdoch, Trish Stratus, Viscera, and Vito. There's several quite significant names there not gone from 08, but they do bring in some significant ones of their own that weren't in last year's game. 08 has the following stars: that were not in 2007. Ashley, CM Punk, Elijah Burke, Jeff Hardy, JTG, Kelly Kelly, Kenny Dykstra, Marcus Corvon, Michelle McCall, MVP, Rick Rude, Sabu, Sandman, Shad Gaspard, Terry Funk, and Tommy Dreamer. There are some great returns here, like Jeff Hardy here, very significant. A lot of debuting stars like ECW, CM Punk, Elijah Burke, and ECW originals, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, and Sabu. And this roster is quite standout because this marks the only game to feature Sabu and Sandman in WWE games. And to go back to the Legends roster, there was an ECW Legends category which included Terry Funk, Sabu, and Tommy Dreamer. Sandman is just listed on the Raw brand, and I think he qualifies an ECW legend as well. So again, keep that in mind when it comes to the Legends roster. I think it's on par, just about, despite some absences. I think the ECW legends, the fact that they're in very few games, and only in one in the case of Sabu here and Sandman, it makes the roster very unique and very standout. So I don't think the roster is bad, It's definitely lacking in a lot of areas, but seeing so many faces we never see in many other WWE games, so it makes it more unique, but it is undeniable that the roster does feel lacking. But fortunately, the creation suite's quite good. All these NPCs I've mentioned, Taz, Maria, you can recreate them, which isn't ideal, but the creation suite between these two games is mostly the same. They're both good. It offers the same stuff as 2007, just with some slight improvements, I feel. The creative moveset thing has changed a bit, and that's due to the core gameplay changing, and we'll get to that. But first, we are created WWE superstar. And it's safe to say I have a little bit of experience making career wrestlers. Just a bit. You have a max of 30 slots, which would obviously be increased in later games, but it's plentiful here. So if you have the time, you can be bothered, fill this up, use core WS or whatever it's called, use that website to get some pretty sweet core formulas, or just make your own, do whatever. You have a lot of options. 2008 has the same creation suite as 2007, albeit with some added stuff. I think added hair, that's the most notable thing, and that's always like a main thing people want. They want more hair options. That's quite a significant part of the look, and it's something that you can't edit much, so you kind of need these specific molds a lot of the time, and it offers a decent selection, I will say. This is before 2010, gave some major improvements to the creation suite. This one's cool, and I noticed a lot of stuff that is in this game that just is removed later on, like the patterns for attire stuff. You can get this weird pattern thing, and you can just put it on a singlet and it looks like an RVD attire. It's not accurate, but you could do it without the need of fucking around with any logos. I made Taz. I sure made Taz. So you can make some decent calls, and because the graphics are really cool, and I particularly like this Zero graphics because your created wrestlers do blend in. If you make a solid enough one, they blend in with the graphics. They don't necessarily look like created superstars. You'll obviously know what's created superstar and what's not, but graphically they align with each other for the most part. So yeah, it is quite fun. Makes great wrestlers. Always a great feature, and it's extremely helpful in 2008 in particular for filling out that roster. I do like the uniqueness of the roster, but the fact I had to use all these slots to recruit some guys at the time, although we didn't need Matt Striker in the roster, but I made them anyway. I got a lot of people. Shout out to anyone who fucking knows who Brooke Adams is. Good luck figuring that one out. These are all real people. So yeah, it's cool. I had a blast making all these great wrestlers, and now that I have them, the roster is just non-existent to me personally, because I really enjoy the cause in these games. So yeah, it took me ages though. You're looking at like at least an hour for each character, and to get like all the stuff for them, like a moveset on it. There are preset moves, there's quite a few, which are helpful. Main change in the core gameplay, and that's something that does affect create a moveset of fighting styles. And each wrestler can have 2 fighting styles. I took this photo on my Rob Van Dam core. You get to choose 2 of 8 fighting styles, and they're all very unique. They're all very cool. There's a lot of stuff to do. Now, I don't think I'll cover each one in like full, but I will mention some cool things because there is so much. There is so much depth to these styles. I really do enjoy it. These are just incredibly underrated, and they make the gameplay so much better, in my opinion. There's so many things that these styles impact and abilities they add that, I can't cover them all. But the reason they were criticized was due to limiting movesets. To explain, the movesets never got any smaller, but the options for moves technically did. This is because a lot of moves were allocated to specific fighting styles, most notably grapple moves, which limited what could be selected. The grapple system worked well went up on the analog stick when you're holding RB. Just moving the analog stick still does like the quick grapples. You get into like the grapple chain, and then on any other analog stick, we'll do one of 4 grapples depending on the direction, which obviously you can allocate and create a moveset, what grapples these are. But there's 2 of these, one's down, one's up. And these pertain to each fighting style. So, up is your first fighting style, down is your second fighting style. An interesting thing with fighting styles is you can actually swap between which one's your primary on the roster select screen, which is just more convenience with the menu system. I do appreciate that. Now, your secondary ability, you still gain all of the perks that it offers, even if you have your secondary ability. What your primary ability grants you is like a special ability for if you store your finisher, which I greatly prefer to just storing the finisher and having a weaker version. It's just much more unique and creative, because, like, personally, I want either this or the signature system introduced in SvR 2009. But this is a suitable alternative. I don't really care for the storing finisher stuff, personally. And it's good. And the momentum bar does fill up quite quickly in these older games. So your ability is quite fast. But you can, in this game, alter how fast your momentum bars fill up, including fighting style actions. So something I recommend, something I quite like, is you turn down the momentum you gain from just regular attacks, but then you keep the fighting style action momentum up, so it feels even more rewarding to do a fighting style action. For example, dirty wrestlers, they'll gain extra momentum if you do dirty moves, as in stuff that involves cheating, like an eye poke or a low blow. It's very cool. But yes, back to the limitations that these cause for your options and create a moveset. So this gets criticized a lot, but honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Because the grapple system, I explained how that works, and you still get a plentiful amount. It's just what your options are. But the moveset still has a decent selection for each fighting style. And also you have 2 fighting styles, so you have a range of 2 fighting styles instead of just the one. So you're not as restricted as you may think. I never found that these movesets limited the impact of the main roster. Everyone seems to have all their stuff for the most part. The fighting styles haven't limited that when it comes to the base roster. I do like the quick grapples and just reversal animations. It's a lot of like the same generic stuff. And this isn't a specific '08 problem. This is just an older game problem. Albeit 2008 gets specific criticism that it's a slower game, but I'm pretty sure, unless I'm missing something, it is the same speed as '07. They both have the mashing buttons together, but it's actually better because you can actually mash multiple buttons and not just one, so you can actually get up quicker. And also, yeah, you just have animations that were shortened in later games, which I don't mind the lengthy animations because they're usually cool. But some of the reversals do get repetitive. But I feel that's the problem with most wrestling, especially as the AI, when a lot of the old AI, I mean, it's still a thing now, is that they get more difficult because they just reverse more. Albeit something good with this game is that you have the sliders to alter like how much they reverse and stuff, and like the impact of weapons and finishes. I like that stuff. It allows you to make your balancing stuff. I think it's a very underrated aspect of the SvR games that I think people should mess around with more, see what they can change. Like, people don't like the stamina system, but I think it's a good feature once you turn down the stamina bar in the settings. I have like all the way down, and you'll get worn out eventually. So you got that realism, but it's not like fucking you over at the start of a match or anything. But yes, in terms of the limitations, and I think it's just personal preference. I don't think it's a big deal. As I've shown, I've made 30 creative wrestlers. I've made movesets based on them all. A lot of them are preset movesets I made, which do include all the stuff, I believe. And I only noticed like a couple times where there was stuff that I wanted in my moveset, but I couldn't due to the playing style. Most notably is Rob Van Dam's stuff is like under Brawler, I think, quite a bit of it. When he's more of a hardcore high flyer, whereas I think the preset moveset for him has him as a hardcore brawler, which bit weird. And that's about it. And again, that's a freaking creative wrestler. He's not even in the actual game, so I can't particularly complain. And I do have a moveset for him with the high fly one. So there's alternatives, The second case was just I had Chris Jericho and I couldn't have him do the the kicks to the head thing that he has in like every fucking game. Because I need him to be a dirty wrestler, I think, or a brawler, and I have him as a technical and submission guy. And again, most versions of Jericho would make him in a dirty fight style anyway, but this is, I base off like Codebreaker Jericho, which is one of the few times he's a babyface. So yeah, it's not really an issue that's come up for me personally. But yes, I will concede that I'd rather have limitless options. The other thing that impacts is, in particular, is dives and stuff. Albeit the majority of fighting styles will still let you do like this regular like vaulting over the rope thing. So I think people are reaching when they say, "Oh, they've removed that." Like no, they've just kind of restricted it a bit, which makes sense to me. As funny as it is for Great Khali to be fucking leaping over the top rope and diving to the outside, I get why you're not supposed to be able to do that. Now, you've seen this image, there's a lot of stuff that's like grayed out. The stuff grayed out here is just what I have selected, so obviously I have high fly and hardcore. And Powerhouse is grayed out because you need to be a heavyweight weight class or higher. And I think in terms of weight limitations, I think the same applies for high fly, but the opposite way. So light heavyweights and cruiserweights. And I think that's it. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think that's it. And that makes sense. I wouldn't have a powerhouse cruiserweight or a high flying giant. It makes sense. So yeah. Another criticism of the fighting styles is that they can be quite unbalanced, with, for example, the powerhouse ability being considered the best by far due to essentially granting the player who uses it temporary immunity. But should I care about balancing the wrestling game? No. All the styles are fun. That's what matters to me. It's not like the AI abuses any of the fighting styles. I quite like how the AI uses their styles, as a matter of fact. It's quite fun because they'll actually play the style. Like, for example, a dirty wrestler, they do like take off the turnbuckle pads quite a lot, and they also have a lot of animations where they're like fucking doing cheap shit, and they always go to the referee and do the referee shield ability, which is so cool, and it comes from this game where you just grab them and you just yeet them, you just shove them into your opponent. It's so fun. A lot of the fighting style abilities are like from past games and now they've been put into specific styles, and I guess people also see it as limiting, but also at the same time I think it works better because it means it means superstars who won't do certain things aren't doing those things anymore, and you can still edit the fighting styles people have anyway. So again, I don't think it's a major issue, but I do understand it. But a lot of this stuff is quite new. The hardcore fighting style has like completely new stuff. It's so fucking cool. Each hardcore wrestler gets a bunch of new like animations when they put on the analog stick to do these special weapon moves, and they're all so cool. You can like the chair especially is a bunch of shit. You can even press A on their limbs and like do like shit like a fucking concerto if you have two chairs. Or you can just go full Sabu, put a chair out, have it like sitting, and then you jump off the chair onto the top ropes and do a fucking springboard moonsault. It is insane how many cool things you can do. You can grab your opponent's head and just scrape it with Pavard. That was in the past game. But there's so much. There's so many stuff, and there's a bunch of new weapons in the game as well. So it's really fantastic. And their ability is grabbing a chair and bashing over their skull until they bleed and probably get a concussion. It's called a hardcore resurrection, which in this game, I believe it actually heals you, which is fucking scuffed logic, but I love it. And then later games that bring hardcore resurrection back, which is 2009 and 2010, they make it so that you get red head damage because you're beating yourself with a chair, but also you get a finisher, whereas it wouldn't, which I think works better, but it doesn't work in this game because you store the finisher to get the ability. So yeah, I like it. It's fun. There's actually better fire styles than others, but it's all fun. It's all fun. And I've just briefly touched upon on like the stuff you can do with the fighting styles. I really do enjoy the fighting styles. So yeah, that covers creation stuff. Let's get back to match types. We discussed what changed between SvR 2007 and 2008. I mentioned like how the removals in 08, we start off quite negative looking at the cons of 2008 compared to 2007. But here we get a massive positive here. So what did they add to make up for the removal of special referee and the barroom brawl? Two quite popular things, match types. Well, I got two words. Extreme Rules. A series mainstay and probably the most played match with every yearly game. This match type just offered so much. And I think its original variant here in SvR 2008 was the match type at its greatest. Just having such a great variety of weapons, all the ECW originals on the roster. And then you even have like a really cool ECW arena with Joey Styles and Taz on commentary. It's just something else. By the way, with the commentary, there's a lot of repetitive and quite frankly obnoxious lines. Particularly when you've got Jerry Lawler being like fucking constantly sexist every couple of minutes when you're in a match featuring women. Well, that's accurate to real life. the game did add 2 new commentators with JBL on the SmackDown brand and Joey Styles on the ECW brand. Taz and Cole were the SmackDown pairing. So yeah, that's something. It is cool to have different commentators and different like referees based in the arena. I like it. It's just a cool aesthetic thing. So yeah, since you mentioned it, this version of the ECW match is only in the ECW arena, which I get because it's especially like ECW specific, but they didn't even let you select One Night Stand or December to Dismember, the 2 ECW pay-per-view reps in the game. Wait, it's minor, but it's a thing to just note. Besides that, I think everything's at its best here. The match is available for up to 4 opponents, meaning you could have a one-on-one tag team trophy out of Fatal 4-Ways Extreme Rules match. I feel like there probably should have been a Triple Threat Tag Team Extreme Rules match option 2, as Triple Threat Tag matches are available in this game, but only for hardcore matches and nothing else, which feels like there should be more. There's a variety of tornado tag possibilities, but hardcore does the trick for that match type. And by the way, that's another thing that was removed in SvR 2009. When I got this game, I didn't realize that was a thing. It took until 2K18 and I realized, oh yeah, we have multi-man stuff. We can do that again, which is dumb. But yes, it's fine. You've got the options you want with up to 4 people. And in a way, the distinction between hardcore and extreme rules is that hardcore is the falls count anywhere stipulation. Something that probably should have just been an option in the match rules, like I mentioned earlier. But hey, this is still years before such basic logic could have been thought of. Another thing is the weapon reel should have just been available in every match type. Albeit, that's not this game's fault, that's the fault of future games, just regressing extreme rules match type. Until 2K20 of all games expanded on the weapon reel with a variety of options and finally making it available in every match type. For its debut game, I get why it's exclusive to this mode. I get why the arena is exclusive to ECW. It makes it feel more special. So yeah, I mentioned that I consider this to be the best version of match type, and let me get into why. Firstly, we need to talk about weapons. Most of these weapons weren't available before in 2008, and even the weapons that were in games before, for the most part, have new animations now. Like the steel chair just haven't been completely changed for a bunch of new stuff, including a weapon finisher where you just fucking DDT him on a chair, and also another DDT animation. It's crazy. It's wild. There's so many chair animations. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like one for each analog thing. You have the one on the ground. You have like corner ones, like you set one up for a poetry motion. You have like 4 different animations for like using the chair on your opponent. You can put the chair in the corner. Absurd amount of stuff. Everything you'd want to do with these weapons, you can do now. And I find that really cool. And obviously there's a great variety now. You have your steel steps and stuff. But the weapon reel features steel chairs, sledgehammers, kendo sticks, mops, barbed wire 2x4, steel bins, tables, and a ladder. I listed most of these as plural, as unlike every version of the match type afterwards, you could put out multiple of one weapon on the wheel. There was no need to fill up the wheel with duplicates of chairs. You could, which obviously helps with the convenience, and is a major part of why it's actually my favorite one. Because this included tables, so you could actually get 2 tables out at once, and you could stack them up, and you could set tables on fire. Also a new thing, setting tables on fire. And you could also set the barbed wire 2x4 on fire, because why the fuck not? You got a finisher, you can just set shit on fire. And I love it. And there's a bunch of weird shit with the table for this match, right? Because you can't get two tables in any other version of match type until 2K20 let you select whatever you want on the wheel, so you could get two tables there. Albeit that limits it to 6 options, and you're taking up multiple slots with multiple of the same weapon. So even then, I feel like that system's flawed. So yeah, in the SvR games, this is by far the best version. For sure. And then is it for other weapons? So tails, you only get 2 at once, but you don't really need more than 2 at once. And for everything else, you can get up to 4. And that's specifically because the match type limits you to getting 4 weapons at once, which is just a constant with the SvR games. Anything under the ring, you only get up to 4 of, which is plenty, I think. And it's fair, obviously, to ensure like the game doesn't struggle with all the weapons going on, because there's also like the steel steps, the bell, all the weapons that the fans and crowd offer. Yeah, that's the thing. We'll get into that. And there's also all the weapons in the actual fighting crowd area. There's a bunch of shit. And also there's an infinite tables for in the crowd, and there's some glitches to just keep getting tables from it, which you can then use in multiple match types. The table spawner remains for the games afterwards, in 09 and 2010, despite removing the fighting crowd area. So when you glitch into the crowd, you can just pick up a bunch of fucking tables from this invisible spawner. The spawner was actually for when you break a table in the fighting crowd area, then you can just get another. For some reason, when you break into the crowd, you can just keep getting a bunch of them and not just one at a time. So that's a cool thing for match types where you can't normally get tables. You can bring them to the ring and stuff. There's a bunch of glitches into the crowd. There's a lot of easy ones. I won't get into it. But it's fun. It's fun to break the game like that. And yeah, I think there's a way to get like other weapons, because there's a fire extinguisher in the crowd, and that's not actually available on a weapon wheel. I'll cover the weapons that are like exclusive to certain scenarios, and there's like a really specific way to get it to ringside, but I can't get it. I can't do it, but I believe it's possible. So yeah, there's so much. Now with back to the weapon wheel, you could actually select your objects. You could change the chair to kind of stick sledgehammer mop, so it's by default. And again, you could pull out multiple of these kind of wheels, so there's no need to put in like a duplicate one. There's no point in that. You're just wasting a slot. And yeah, these could be altered, and the other options included a championship belt, a guitar, and a crutch. Now that seems cool, right, to have the option of that. But in actuality, there's no point to it, because I mentioned how fans get weapons from the crowd, right? And yeah, there's zero reason to edit the selection in this game. So let me explain. The crazy fuckers in the crowd will offer you weapons, and this is where you can grab guitars, crutches, the replica title belts, and even drinks to throw in your opponent. And in the fireball crowd area, there's also like some fans that'll just hand you their chairs. It's crazy. So yeah, you can get plenty of those weapons without needing to put them in the weapon wheel. So there's no real point of replacing like a weapon wheel exclusive weapon with one of them. I think it's a novel edition, but in actuality, there's no actual value to it. I do like the look of it, how like there's like blood splatters on like the fucking UI here. That's quirky. I just like the whole look of it. But yeah, I do think this is kind of a missed opportunity, because I mentioned there are other weapons. Also with the crowd, there's just a bunch of like interactions, like celebrating with signs or ripping them up. Special tournament, you lean back into the crowd and celebrate with them. The interactivity in this match is just so unreal. And you could even like drag your opponent into one of the crazy fucking fans offerings, and then you trigger like an animation, such as like throwing them through a guitar being held up by a fan. There was just so many animations, and it was so awesome. And fun fact, these animations stayed around even for the series that was just named WWE, so 12, 13, 14, which is one of the rare remnants of the interactive elements that came alongside the Ultimate Control grapples. So yeah, there's no point of having weapons. So changing this weapon wheel is perfect by default. But what would have put this match over the edge was the inclusion of additional weapons you could select in this weapon wheel, like tires, fire extinguishers, and shovels. Yes, these 3 weapons were also in SvR 2008, but were never available under the ring. The shovel could be retrieved from the dump truck in the parking lot brawl, or taken from the dirt mound in the buried line match, which you could take anywhere in the arena, which is cool, but it only features in that specific match type. The tire also appears in the parking lot brawl too, and it shares the same animations as the steel steps, which is a neat thing. And actually, the fire extinguisher I mentioned before can be acquired from like any regular match from the crowd area, but you can't bring it out into the ringside area without glitches. So it is there, but you can't just bring it to the ringside or in the ring or whatever. It doesn't break though, which is neat. So you don't have like. You can use it as much as you want, basically. And there is like a special animation with the hardcore wrestlers where they just spray the fire extinguisher on you, which I really like. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool, but I think they should have just been in a weapon wheel. If you're going to have the object select thing, then include all of it, that would have given it some value for sure. And that's another thing. The other weapon that doesn't break, the only one in the weapon wheel that won't break, everything else, every weapon back in this game would break after 4 hits. It would just break. The ladders do not. They don't break in this game. There's a bunch of really cool animations, like the hardcore going to put it on their head and spin around like a fucking helicopter. There's also sort of animations where jumping off a ladder, doing a move off a ladder like a suplex. You can put the ladders on the announce desks. It's not like an intended feature, but it's like very easy to angle it and drop it on it. I have old ass videos of this being done in like SvR 2010, which can be done in this game. Let me show you. Leg drop from ladder on a table to a man on another table. Just look at this. You put it on a table, you can put someone on a table, and you do that. Shit's crazy. Also, yeah, I have another table there because I did like crowd glitches in 2010. 2010 is another cool game. Like I said, I want to cover that in a future day. It's just a shame how 2009 took so many stuff away from us, so 2010 does struggle with that, but it's a really cool. And yeah, it just shows the possibility of match type and how replayable it's been every year, making its return yearly and probably being the most played match type each year. This is such a major match type that easily makes up for the removal of the barroom brawl and special referee, as cool as they are, And again, there's no justification for removing them, but when you're looking at like which match type selection is better, I've gotta say it's SvR 2008. I can't imagine wrestling games anymore that don't have the Extreme Rules match type. It's just a full sandbox to do crazy shit. Even if you're not like a hardcore wrestling fan class, you can still like use every weapon. You're just gonna miss out on so many animations, And again, you can just select the hard animation for like the moveset, and there's like a restore to default button. So if you really just want like you're gonna be like, okay, this wrestler, like say CM Punk, he's not typically in a hardcore fan class, I don't think. You can just change that, and just return to default if you want the default moveset, So it's cool. It's really cool. You're really not limited here besides the ladder not being breakable, which, that does limit it to then, I can only take 3 weapons from the ring at a time. Which obviously you then break and you get more weapons, but once the ladder comes out, that like the limitation there does become noticeable. but regardless, it's a great match type. And I have just like one final thing to touch about the gameplay in this game. There's various things we haven't discussed. I've been discussing stuff that's different from the past games, here. So I'm like discussing it under like the assumption what's available for. And there's just a bunch of cool shit, in general, like ultimate control. So there's a bunch of interactable stuff. It's a really cool, also underrated feature. They actually updated so you can escape whenever you want. Before, when you put an ultimate control move, you're stuck there unless the person doing the move runs out of stamina, which is obviously a lot more annoying. So I do prefer to change the there. All the animations stay intact with all like the interactive stuff, all the ultimate control stuff. There's a bunch of hidden shit I didn't even know existed with them. It just feels so interactive. Everything feels interactable in this game. I love it. Like you can do a powerbomb on the steel sets. There's like a specific animation for it, So like whilst this was like before like 2011, where you had the like tech to do like shit like register landing on weapons through normal moves and going for tails whenever you want. The animations here are so cool, and you have a great variety of them, that I kind of prefer this. This works better. Yes, the last thing is the submission system in 2008 is drastically improved. The pin system stays the same because it's just button mashing, which not my sort of thing, but it's not terrible. But yeah, the submission system adds more strategy to submission holds, making you have to juggle between wrenching the hold and stopping so you don't lose your grip. And when you aren't wrenching the submission hold, the opponent has a chance to escape by rotating the right stick around, like trying to pick a lock. SvR 2007 submission system, meanwhile, is, you guessed it, button mashing. So yeah, this is a definite improvement, and it's really cool when you're playing a submission superstar, because their ability is just, they can just crank on it. They can just keep pulling on it. And this has changed after 08. The wrench system remains, but also there's no consequence to wrenching hard. Like, there's no reason to not wrench. I don't know why you need to pull on it, because they changed it so you just wobble the right stick around to escape, which is definitely inferior to, in my opinion. This is my favorite way the submissions work. It's quite intense. I quite like it. It might be a bit unbalanced, but yeah, I do enjoy it. It's cool. The only main gripe I have is the fact that I think a lot of submissions are gone. There's not as many submission moves. The moves that were submission before, I believe they're all still in the game. I don't believe 2008 actually removed any moves from the moveset list. However, they won't actually trigger submission thing, because it needs to be the specific struggle submission to trigger the submission minigame thing. So yeah, that covers the core gameplay. Now on to game modes. Game modes. There's a few options here. The WWE shop is weirdly categorizing the game modes. I guess there's just no other place to put it. I don't count it as a game mode. Basically, you use your money gained in the season mode side of 24/7 mode to purchase unlockables. It's like some move set stuff to unlock. There's also these like starter kit things for your creative wrestlers, give them some stat boosts. And then, of course, there's buying the legends and stuff, as well as a few alter ties, like you can get bold Vince McMahon in this game, which is fun, and also you can get DX ties for Triple H and Shawn Michaels. This is the first instance of like alter ties in a long while for wrestling games. Obviously, nothing major here. You've just got Vince with hair or no hair, and then two different ties for DX. So I find it cool, but obviously it's nothing major yet. It takes until like 2011 to get a proper decent selection of alts. So yeah, I'll start with 24/7 mode here, and season mode and GM mode are both incredibly popular parts of the old SvR games, and the equivalent of them remains in 2008 under this 24/7 mode. This mode allows you to play as a created superstar, a superstar from a specific assortment, which was smaller than past season modes, probably due to the roster decrease. And it was kind of a missed opportunity, as you could never join the ECW brand, although there's multiple storylines pertaining to ECW. Then there's the option to play as a general manager, which is the GM mode equivalent. This is all listed on the 24/7 mode, which weirdly means you can only have one save at a time, despite the wrestling GM version of 24/7 mode being entirely different, because one is season mode, one is GM mode. Which is certainly an oversight, but what actually changed this year besides the new naming? Well, the name 24/7 is because of the new calendar system. This allows you to see a full calendar and do actions on your off days, such as events to make money, like starring a movie, trying to boost overall stats, which can be either played or just simulated, and as you see here, interfering in other brand shows, and more, which, causes fatigue, but you get like a reward out of it and whatnot. This just added a bit more strategy to both modes and just generally offered more stuff to do as well as adding immersion. But a lot of the options for stuff to do feel quite useless. Some just don't offer as good stuff as others. And I think the fatigue system was meant to balance that out, but it doesn't really matter. At least so what I found. For example, in GM mode, the most important stat is considered popularity, and because we can use a calendar to boost popularity the quickest way, it's you basically just, at least from what I've played, the optimal strategy is to simply just do either a brand invasion or trophy dates. Gross, I know, but I like the best for popularity. So they felt like the only thing I should do is the best at boosting popularity, the most important stat in GM mode. So regardless of the imperfections here, the calendar, I feel, is simply an improvement to what last year offered. Also in season mode, you could literally invade shows. You would interfere in other matches, which was cool, albeit it did nothing. There was no point of you running in on matches, but it was a thing you could do. So, sure, it's more content. Why not? And training would also be done to permanently increase created wrestler stats, which was admittedly tedious, and it could take me over an hour of being in GM mode and doing nothing but simulating trainings of one of my career wrestlers, just to get them to the overall I wanted, and a lot of them weren't even high overalls, because you get the golden kit, right, and that's like 79 or 80 overall, depending on which fighting style you get it for. And then, say I want an 86 overall, it still takes a really fucking long time. So yeah, it's not great. It's quite grindy for that, but it's doable, and I do think it's better than a lot of other ways the SvR games have handled boosting stats, because 09 had a shitty career mode that didn't even have any cutscenes at all. It was just matches, and you had to play that with your creative superstar to boost their stats. Really annoying there. 2010 did the same thing, but it would apply to exhibition at least, so that was something. But I still prefer 08 because at least I can accurately get the stats I want. As tedious as the process may be, it's at least doable. So yeah, that's what the training is mainly for. Albeit you could do it for your playable wrestlers as well, make them stronger, but that wouldn't apply to exhibition. It's a thing you had to do to get your created wrestlers up just for exhibition, and of course it would have the same impact on other modes, but their popularity remained at 20 in GM mode, which is unfortunate. It would have been nice to scale that, because it treats every creative wrestler like they're just a newcomer, which is kind of ignorant of the fact that a lot of people are going to be using the creation suite to recreate wrestlers. So I wish that was something you could edit, but it's not a big deal. Another change with the season mode equivalent is that the locker room has changed to automatic locker room backgrounds. They upgrade as you progress your legend status, which is a nice touch, but it's nothing in comparison to 07's ability to customize your locker room, which I personally don't care for the customization of a locker room, but I can tell a lot of effort went into the option to do so. And also I find it weird how this feature was also removed from 2008. But I do find it overall to be an inconsequential removal for me personally, guys. But yeah, the season mode in 2008, I feel is on par with other season modes. It's typically considered the worst, but I think it's just fine. It has the same issues, I feel, as other season modes, with repeating storylines over time, albeit there's no alternative for this unless you were to have a proper ending, not for anything to say. So I know why it's a thing, but it's just not that enjoyable. And yeah, a lot of these storylines were just outright mediocre, but I don't think there's like any inconsistent writing quality here. I just think you have your mid storylines and then your actually decent storylines in all the season modes. So a lot of my gripes are not specific to 2008. I just don't think I'm a season mode guy. I've never been crazy about career modes in any games. So yeah, it's never been a big deal to me. So I do feel that 2008 is on par with the other season modes from what I've seen, what I've played through. I think a specific negative of this one is that there's more generic cutscenes, but these don't necessarily override like unique cutscenes. It's not filler, but they added it on top of the actual story cutscenes. And this was just generic animations to allow unique commentary lines. There's admittedly a lot of commentary lines, which is appreciated, but it's really annoying to have to sit through the same cutscene. There's like 3 ones before the show, and then like the same generic ones as much. And they kind of just throw in whatever character models are relevant, rather than making sense. For example, you're going down backstage and there's like some people on the roster, and that can include your rival. You could just be bro-fisting your rival at the time. It's dumb. I feel like they could have crammed the commentary into the entrances, because there's still unique commentary in the entrances. So yeah, I don't like the cutscene stuff, but it does give more commentary dialogue, so I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's not well executed, but I don't think it makes it inferior to other season modes because this was added. And also post-match generic cutscenes were a bit inconsistent, as sometimes it would treat you as the winner when you lost, or vice versa. And the increase in these generic cutscenes were just to include the commentary dialogue. There was nothing else for them. But you did have story, like proper story stuff, unique story stuff, which I've heard criticized for not working, like you wouldn't get stories. But I feel this has to be bullshit, because you need a story to trigger each time. Each event has a story going on until whatever next pay-per-view is. You can't go for a playthrough and not have a story mode at time. There's always a storyline occurring, like any other season mode, which is why I think it's on par. The calendar is good. The calendar, by the way, you can just like skip stuff. So if it isn't actually your thing, you can just simulate to the next show. You can ignore its existence entirely. So yeah, I think that's neat. And I don't believe there's less storylines than other games, because it offers over a calendar year's worth of stuff. Like, you'll go to another year and there's like a couple brand specific stuff. And like I think there's multiple WrestleMania storylines. There's at least two I know of. One where you like face representative of the McMahons in a first blood match, and the other is an Elimination Chamber championship match. So yeah, there's some cool stuff, you know. A lot of it, and like there's a really long ass like a storyline for like a movie role. It gets kind of crazy because like Roddy Piper shows up and then he like tags with you, then he fucking betrays you. It's crazy, and it's like a nuts ladder match. But in the first storyline, because it follows the same cycle, and I'm not sure if other season modes did it that way. I think they did, but it only really becomes an issue when you do multiple playthroughs or you go through a whole year, because you have over a whole year of unique storylines at the very least. So yeah, the first storyline is like you got like number one contenders, you're fighting to become number one contender. But the thing is, that storyline ends, and even if you win, it never triggers a championship storyline. The first championship storyline happens like halfway through the year, before Survivor Series. It's like Cyber Sunday, I think, for Raw. Unforgiven for SmackDown? I can't remember. But yeah, it happens way after. So you have this number one contender storyline. At the start, everyone's playthrough starts off with this number one contender storyline. And it doesn't lead to anything. It's quite bad, right? It's a pretty shit story. And I think that's like my main gripe with season mode, is that none of the storylines feel connected. And that's an issue I've had with all the games, really. But at least follow up with a championship storyline for the number one contenders storyline. That would just make sense. So yeah, I can see why people hate this mode, because your first storyline literally leads to nothing. But yeah, there's still some good stuff if you if you let it play out. Oh god, like there's some cool ECW stuff, like ECW invades, and you have a bunch of hardcore matches. And yeah, like there's one where Tommy Dreamer, who is the ECW general manager, I don't know why, we'll get into that in a bit. He takes over like Raw and SmackDown for a bit, and he brings back like the Hardcore Championship, and you're like wrestling on like December to Dismember, defending the championship against like 3 guys. There's some crazy storylines here. There's some fun stuff. But a lot of it is just mediocre. But I do feel like that is a season mode norm. This doesn't feel like inferior quality. It feels about as good as the others, in my personal opinion. And again, I'm not really a career mode guy. I prefer to make up my own storylines in exhibition, because a lot of these just aren't good storylines. But there is fun to be had. I don't think season mode achieves its replayability status that it tries to do, but I think every year's tried that and it doesn't work. So again, my gripes with the mode are with the mode as a whole, not SvR 2008 specific interpretation of it. It's just I don't like the mode, I don't think. For the most part, at least. So yeah, overall it's solid, you know. It's an extra mode. I'm totally cool with it. I just wish it was not so much of a drag, and you'd have to like it wasn't the only way to get like a currency to unlock stuff. But it still doesn't feel intrusive. Like, I'm gonna do a playthrough anyway. Like, my recommendation if you get this game is because you're gonna have like one save at a time, which I think is the biggest oversight of this. It's just the fact you can't have multiple save files, even though GM mode and season mode are very different things. And you're probably going to want one of each running at the same time. That's like the biggest gripe I have with this game specifically. But yeah, my recommendation would be you do the Superstar version of the 24/7 mode first. Then you fuck around with your GM mode stuff. Use GM mode to boost character stats and stuff. And whatnot. So yeah, speaking of, let's get into the GM mode side of things. So the final incarnation of the fan favorite mode before SvR 2009 side, no, it shouldn't have fun anymore. I think this is the best version of the mode. The calendar does add to the experience. I think it's incorporated better here than it is in the actual Superstar season mode, personally. Even though they both function the same. I think it just works better. It suits GM mode more. And yeah, I've made an SvR 2007 GM mode playthrough. I've looked at 06, which debuted the mode. 06 and 07 are pretty similar to me. I think 07 is just overall a bit improved. 08 has a lot of unique stuff. Firstly, your calendar system, and secondly, the introduction of a new brand. With the ECW brand. Yes, ECW is a brand GMO, which solidifies as my personal favourite. Because each brand provides a unique playthrough beyond just like aesthetics. Like SmackDown has the Cruiserweight Championship, Raw's the Women's Championship, and ECW has just the ECW World Championship and no other belts, which is interesting. And like the ECW World Championship has nothing to do with like popularity. So I guess you could argue it's like a easy mode because it's less to manage. I don't know. I would have liked to actually no, I'll talk about it in a moment, because basically I think there's some just general so out of mode cover. Like I don't think the system's perfect. It's just the GM modes formula or I don't think it's entirely perfect. I think there's some issues, there's some tedious stuff with it. But again, I think that's a general issue with GM mode. I feel like by 2008, a lot of this probably should have been, like more well-rounded. I don't know if that's the right word. But, you could argue that there should be a more significant improvement between the version of the mode. And I do think it improves, but there's still general weirdness. Most notably, I think it's honestly probably at its worst in this game is the rating system and how the ratings are just weird. How they're determined. You can have shows just as good and it feels like it's just losing fans. You'll get like a fan boost whenever you pay per view, which makes sense, but then you just drop again. It's really hard to keep your to start off strong, because once you start losing fans in the game, it feels like you drop. And I think there's a lot of like hidden like fucking tech with this mode I don't understand. But I do think the inclusion of a third brand does fuck around with the ratings a bit, and that's why it's more illogical than I found like SvR 2007's and 2006's ratings to be. But I still prefer it for the calendar for the ECW brand. Something I do wish the ECW brand had, though, was the ECW Extreme Rules match type. Because it's weird, because you can select match speciality, which is a cool little thing. Basically, if your wrestlers put on a 5-star match in a certain match type, then they become a specialist in that match type, and they're just guaranteed to have better matches, higher rated matches in a match type once that happens, which is a really good incentive to do different match types. I really like it. And a lot of wrestlers, they start off with a match speciality, and you can assign them to your creator wrestlers. And this includes ECW Extreme Rules match, which is not playable in 24/7 mode at all. Not in the Superstar mode, not in the General Manager mode. So I feel like they should have had Extreme Rules as a match type specifically for the ECW brand. It's kind of compensation for having only one championship. But yeah, I think that's just a missed opportunity. It's not a necessity, it doesn't detract from the game. I just think it's weird. ECW brand. So each brand has like 5 of their own branded shows. And that includes ECW, even though there's only one night stand in the 70th member arenas. You'll just have like 3 like premium events in the regular ECW arena. Which makes sense. Because that balances everything out. And also it makes sense why there's only 2 ECW pay-per-view arenas. because that's all there were. There was just one night stand, and then they tried to send to Dismember. It fucking sucked, so they didn't do another one. That's why. Fun fact: Descent to Dismember is actually an ECW pay-per-view. Like there was one in the 90s, like OG ECW. That is an actual pay-per-view title they had. It's a cool fucking name. But yeah, it didn't actually originate with the infamous 2006 one, which is in this game. So, bugger better ECW Descent to Dismember. You can do that in this GM mode. And yeah, you look at the general managers, and yeah, you have Tommy Dreamer. Now, firstly, you look at the rosters, and because the roster's smaller, I've seen complaints that the roster isn't deep enough to for free brands to work. And I just disagree with this, because in GM mode, you can only have up to 20 superstars. So when there's 50, that's like nearly a full roster for everyone. It's a full roster for you and like 15 for the others on average, for the other two brands. And, you know, in the past games, the AI would rarely ever like fill up all 20 of their slots anyway. So it's not like that's an issue. Like you have enough to pick from. And obviously you throw and create superstars to the mix, then you have more stuff. I say it's 50 and not 53. 53 is the full roster, as I mentioned earlier. And that's because the McMahons, Shane and Vince, they are in a mode, play one mode, which makes sense because they're the McMahons. And then also Tommy Dreamer. And this is really weird because he's the general manager, like I said before. And this is odd because he wasn't the actual ECW general manager. Now, there was a time period where ECW didn't actually have a GM. They had Paul Heyman as their authority figure until he got fired. But by the time of this release, there was a GM, Armando Estrada, who's Umanga's manager. And he does appear in the season mode. He is an NPC. Who actually is like a manager who will accompany Umaga in his actual matches. When you face him in season mode, there's a whole storyline with him. But he's not in the roster again. That's like a whole other thing. You know, you have like the manager characters that make sense to be non-playable, but also this is before they had considered letting you pick managers to accommodate you. Accompany you, not accommodate, to accompany you as the manager, because you can select your manager. So yeah, that's kind of a missed opportunity. It wasn't an SvR 2009 where you had Hornswoggle, where there was a technically a manager there. He was quite fun. That was a fun mechanic. Like, you'd summon him and he'd like slide a shillelagh into the ring. It's goofy as fuck. So yeah, that does take Tommy Dreamer out of GM mode because they didn't want you to be Armando Estrada, I guess. And it was very recent when Armando would have become the ECW GM at this time. But it's a simple change, isn't it? You know? And just would have made sense. He was like the only other NPC guy who was already in the game. It would have just slotted in perfectly. But it's not a big deal. You know, I just find it weird. And also it means you can't pick Tommy Dreamer in GM mode, obviously. So it's definitely strange. But yeah, besides that, you know, it's good. It's GM mode. It's got all the stuff you like. You book your matches. You have your promo stuff. You don't like the velocity or heat stuff anymore, but that's not really a bad thing. Velocity isn't in this game as like an arena or anything because the show was killed the year before. Heat is still in the game. It's not involved in like GM mode. It's in season mode. If you're a creative wrestler, you wrestle in Heat for a month. That's like a special creative superstar storyline because you're new to the company or whatever. So that's the thing. That's kind of like a tutorial, I suppose. And then obviously it's an arena game. So yeah, that's just a little bit of info. Doesn't really matter. And yeah, obviously use the calendar to boost popularity and stuff, which people consider to be too easy. I think it helps like strategizing and stuff because there's more stuff to do. I like it. Again, it's not perfect. It's quite broken. A lot of stuff just isn't viable in the calendar options. But I enjoy it. And again, you can simulate. So you can just ignore it entirely if you want a real challenge. And just treat it like the previous two entries did with GM mode. So yeah, overall, I think this is the best one. You know, you have an extra brand. You have like, the calendar stuff. So yeah, I think those are significant additions. Even though I think there's some more questionable stuff going on with how the ratings work. But besides that, it's good. It's GM mode. I think this mode's existence is quite overrated, but I do think it's the best one still. There hasn't been a perfect GM mode, but I think this is as close as it gets. But again, that's just me personally. But it's great to obviously have this, you know, it's important content, it's fan favorite content, and I think if you like GM mode, you're obviously going to enjoy this one, and it's a standout one because of ECW. So yeah, overall, I'm positive on that. Let's check out a couple other of the game modes. Next, we have tournament modes. Now, this is entirely new to SvR 2008, and actually sticks around for SvR 2009. 2009 not removing something, that's crazy. But yes, tournament mode is actually quite cool. Now, 07 had something called the pay-per-view mode, and this will let you name the show, select its arena, choose what brands are there, choose the number of matches that go up to 8, and then choose the commentary. So basically, this isn't anything. Like, this doesn't add any new gameplay, really. The only, like, unique part of this is the fact that you can have, like, the SmackDown commentators in, like, a Raw event, you know, or vice versa. Besides that, nothing will change. You could just, you know, what I do with these games when I'm, like, having, like, my own, like, continuity with exhibition matches and stuff, I just write down the match card, you know. I think this is convenient, and I personally would actually use it if I were to like start an exhibition series in 07. But yeah, I don't care that it's been removed. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, in its place, I guess we have tournament modes because you can create your own tournament. So I guess this is kind of its replacement. I don't know. It's a different thing. Let me show you. When you select tournament modes, this is what you get. King of the Ring and Beat the Clock Sprint. And then there's also Create Tournament, Quick Play Tournament, Load Tournament. Load Tournaments because you can save tournaments. And there is multiple save slots for this, which is quite convenient. I feel like I'm probably going to get through a tournament as soon as I start it, though. But I do appreciate it. In case I don't, you can save it, go back to it when you can play the game again. That's really cool. Now, specifically King of the Ring and Beat the Clock Sprint are listed here and not on the create thing because the King of the Ring, you can actually select this as a tournament type. I will show you what the create tournament thing is in a moment. But King of the Ring, in the create a stable thing, there is like an automatic King of the Ring stable thing at number 1, and that is whoever wins the tournament, and then I guess their queen. It's a bit weird. You have like this kind of cool cutscene at the end, and yeah, you have that, and you get like you in your crown and your fucking robe, and then you get put in the stable thing, which doesn't really do much, but it's something. It's a neat thing, and that's why this is listed separate from the Create a King of the Ring tournament version, because this one actually affects the King of the Ring stable thing that's in Create a Stable. Beat the Clock Sprint is really fucking cool, actually. Now, tournaments, again, you can make your argument I made for the pay-per-view thing, where you can just write down your own tournament bracket and do but because there's such a variety of the amount of types of tournament you can set up in this game, and just like there's some specific things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, but I do feel like this is unique content. It counts as unique content in my eyes. Now, Beat the Clock Sprint is definitely unique content. This is not something you could experience outside this mode or any other game. Now, Beat the Clock is an actual thing, right? There's always these little challenges that involve, well, the first person who wrestles in the Beat the Clock Sprint, whoever wins, they set a time based on, obviously, how quickly they won the match. And then everyone who wrestles afterwards has to beat that time. You set like another time, and the next person tournament goes. You can set it to like just 4, I think. So it's basically someone has a timer, and then someone tries to beat it, and that's it. You can go up to 16. You can go from like 4 to 16 for every tournament type, I believe. So yeah, it's cool. Quick Play Tour just drops you into like a randomized tournament straight away. And kind of like how Quick Play just immediately drops you into something. This one's a bit more interesting because it like it randomizes everything. So yeah, and that's like a create tournament. Now here you could select like a championship. It's for including all the championships that are actually in the game. There's quite a lot in this game. Alongside your created championships, these are all championships I've created, as well as selecting that it's a non-title match. And also selecting if it's a tag tournament as well. Like, you have everything you want for a tournament mode. But you can select a tournament type. You have King of the Ring, SmackDown vs. Raw, which is like brand stuff, Road to WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, and Custom Tournament. Custom Tournament, you give it like a unique name, but it shares the same logo as SmackDown vs. Raw one. Road to WrestleMania is the Road to WrestleMania. Winner goes to WrestleMania to find someone. King of the Ring is King of the Ring tournament. Money in the Bank is another unique one because it involves 6 matches. The winner of each match will go on to the Money in the Bank ladder match. I find that really cool. Below this is the option to select the number of participants. Obviously, depending on your type, you might not be able to select it. And also you can select Iron Man mode, which is basically, it treats it as the tournament's happening in one night. So the damage sustained in one match will carry over to the next. So yeah, you have everything you want for like a tournament thing. And I find this really cool. And again, it's a simple thing. Simple thing that should just be in every game going forward, but it's not because 2010 removes it. Why 2010? It's not sure a move after 2009, so I don't know why they tried taking more stuff out. I don't know. It's weird, but this is a really cool mode. And again, it's something that gives points to this game specifically. And lastly, there is one more game mode. There is the Hall of Fame mode. Now, this is like, I can't remember how many challenges, but there's various challenges over the years, and it's basically replicating an event, a historical event, or doing something that ties into an event. Like one is like based on like John Cena bringing in the spinner belt, so you need to create your own championship and get like 5-star prestige. Which, yeah, the create championship thing is like your own title history you can view and stuff. It is quite cool. And yeah, you do all these challenges and you get a Hall of Fame status. This unlocks more arenas and wrestlers and whatnot. Like certain events unlocks and stuff. Like the Mick Foley challenge is beating him in a Hell in a Cell match. But then you can purchase him. And yeah, this doesn't fuck around. You know, the first challenge here with Shawn Michaels, you could do them in any order, by the way, you're not restricted. But the first one that shows up is win the Royal Rumble, 30-man Royal Rumble, as Shawn Michaels, starting at entry number 1, and on legendary difficulty, which is crazy. I remember this is before 2010 updated Rumble match. This is still the Rumble match where if 2 people grab you, you're just gone. You're just gone 90% of the time. It wasn't a flawless mode to say the least. But yeah, it was such a fun challenge, and it's very memorable. There's a lot of other stuff, and a lot of unique stuff, I find. Some things you did have to do in order, like one is like beating the Hardys at SummerSlam in a TLC match, I think, or maybe it was a ladder match. I don't remember the specifics. But you need to unlock the SummerSlam arena, so you need to save that one till last, pretty much. So yeah, and it's cool because you climb your ranks, and once you beat them all, you get the Hall of Fame rank, which I only achieved very recently here, March 16th, 2023. So yeah, this is a fun little challenge mode. It's not offering you like any special like modes or shit, no special like gameplay, but it's giving you stuff to do and there's stuff to unlock, and it's really cool. It's my favorite way. It's my favorite way a WWE game has had you unlock stuff, and it's kind of like a precursor to like your showcase mode and stuff, because you're essentially recreating moments. So yeah, I enjoy this. It's a neat little thing, and the past games had no equivalent of this. Is completely unique to this game, and it's just a nice little cherry on top of this great game. And now that wraps up this video. I realize this is more of a comparison of 08 to 07 in particular, rather than comparing it to every game, because I don't have the time for that. But I think it's important to do, as I mentioned previously, 07 has its legendary stats. And while it's deserved, I do think 08 deserves its own credit. It's my favourite one in the series. Because even though I think there's definite improvements to the gameplay in a lot of ways in the following SvR games, well, not 2011. 2011 simplifies things too much. That is a story for another time. That is another spicy take I have. I have a lot of nostalgia because I grew up with 09 and 11. They're actually probably my least favorite, besides the original SmackDown vs. Raw. So yeah, there's no nostalgia bias or anything here. This is just my own like opinion, no necessary biases. It's just what I prefer. So yeah, let me know what your favorite is, and if there is something I'm missing when I'm comparing these games, then let me know. And yeah, as I mentioned, I might do something for SvR 2010, comparing it to, I guess, the games it's next to, because I think you can half it here. You have 06, 07, 08, then you have 9, 10, and 11. I think that's like a two-half thing. Where the original SvR game goes, it's just here comes the pain with less stuff. It doesn't have much of its own identity, but it's cool that it started the SvR series. If I might as well pop off and give a little ranking here. I'd say number 1 is SvR 2008. Number 2 is SvR 2010, which has near perfect gameplay but just lacks content. Third place is probably 2007 or 2006. 2007, 2006. They're like third or fourth for me. Then you have 2011, 2009, and then the very first SvR. That's my ranking. And yeah, that might be its own video, me explaining that in depth. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. And again, it's all my opinion. I went off a script for all this. It was mainly just pointers on what to talk about, albeit this is 6,000 words long, and I haven't like gone off of it because I don't want to sound fucking robotic. And there's like other stuff I wanted to add as I went through it. I do enjoy making these long form sort of content where I like show something in the background. It's not like high editing, and I think that's fine. I don't want to do high editing. I just show you an image or photos in this case of some of the stuff that I took this morning for the editing. But yeah, it's all edited. This is my final message here. I love the SvR games. They're very important to me. And I think 2008 is just so fucking good. But yeah, don't take my word for it. My favorite wrestling game isn't even a WWE game. It's M Dickey's Wrestling Empire. So yeah, I might just have weird taste. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I just feel 2008 is the most updated entry in the series that still retained its core values. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.